Do you have a magnetic personality? Well, how about a magnetic recovery? Today we talk about that topic on Finding Traction. Welcome aboard. Well, today before we talk about magnets, I wanted to just bring up a new group that I've started Saturday morning. We're mid-June 2021, and if you're hearing this somewhat current, at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time, we're collecting a group of guys that usually work Monday to Friday and need a Saturday morning group. So 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are going to be starting a Zoom group for guys that want to take the one-year course, the Finding Traction course, and we do it together. And so I really want to encourage you to check that out. If you want more information, you can email me at my new email at bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. So we still have room for a couple more guys, and we're just getting going on that. So wanted to put that into your thinking. Now let's go back to this whole idea of magnets. You know, I love word pictures because, well, I like words too, of course, but word pictures for me are often easier to remember, and they stick in our emotions and our memory for a lot longer period of time. So I have a new recovery word picture I want to try out on you. And you know, for me, the recovery journey feels a little bit like I am made of metal. Okay, so you got to work with me on this word picture. So you're made of metal. I don't know, the Tin Man or something, but our bodies are made of metal, and we are susceptible to the various pulls and attractions of different magnets in our life. Now, in this word picture, there is a large, significant magnet that is behind us on our recovery path. Now that magnet, of course, is our old sexual compulsions and behaviors, and that old magnet in our past continues to exert its pull and attractions. I feel its effects. It calls to me. It pulls at me. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shouts. And I hear the siren call that says, we're always here for you. Remember how good we made you feel. That is that old magnet which is behind me on this recovery path. Now, obviously, the goal of our recovery is for you and me, apparently, to get as far away from that magnet as possible. Yet the difficulty is we still feel its pull and effects, don't we? Hopefully I've been honest with you about that as part of my journey. I like this word picture because it also helps explain another reality that guys who've been in any sort of long-term recovery struggle with. And that this word picture is helpful for me because it kind of explains how self-defeating any sort of edging actions on my part are to my recovery. Now, if you're not familiar with the term edging, let me just remind you or explain to you, edging is any actions on my part which would correspond to me walking or tiptoeing back towards that old magnet and seeing how close I can get to it without the magnet pulling me into direct contact. And of course, we know the closer we walk towards the magnet, the harder it is to resist its magnetic pull. That's why edging is so self-defeating. The only way we can truly recover is to get as far away from that old magnet as possible. You know, and one of the major premises of this podcast, as we started, it says to help us find traction in our desire to move away from those destructive magnetic pulls and patterns in our life. Now here's good news. The further I walk away from that magnet, the less I feel its pull. Now, here's the maybe not so good news. The more I focus on that old magnet, it seems that it wants to re-exert its pull and influence over my life. You know, it feels sometimes in this recovery journey that we're really trying to walk uphill on a down escalator. Or perhaps we're walking away from that old magnet, but that old magnet is following after us. And it just feels that's not fair. The harder we work to create separation, sometimes it feels self-defeating. It's like that magnet is on a bit of a bungee cord. And I think because of that, I think it's worth asking this question. Is there a better way to approach recovery than simply trying to get away from our old behaviors and actions? Otherwise, at times, if you're like me, it can simply feel exhausting. It can feel self-defeating. Like the old AA phrase, the white knuckling, or somebody else described it as trying to hold a beach ball under the water. And that's sometimes how this journey can feel if all we have is the idea of getting away from the old magnet. So this now brings us hopefully to a new encouraging second half to this word picture. Now, in this new word picture, this new addition to this old idea, we are now going to take a second magnet and we are now going to place it ahead of us in our recovery pathway. Now, this new magnet ahead of us, it also exerts a pull and attraction on us. This new magnet tries to pull us forward, not backward, but pull us forward into a new and better life. Now that begs the question, well, what sort of new magnets could that be, or new magnet? Well, I would say anything would qualify that pulls our attentions and affections forward in a good way. They could be new attractions, new affections, new focuses, new passions, new motivations, things I'm excited about, anything which pulls us forward. And this partly is behind the opening byline that you hear that starts every one of these podcasts that says this. It's not just moving away from porn, the old magnet. It's also moving toward the life and relationships, the new magnet, that we've always dreamed of or thought possible for our lives. Let's just take a little bit more time and explore what some of these magnets or a new magnet could look like. Well, for one, it could be taking and dusting and polishing off our big why. Matt Dobschutz talks a lot about our big why on Porn Free Radio. Some great episodes there. And really, that is all about getting in touch with our deeper motivations that want to pull us forward. Every time we remind ourselves of what we really want out of this life, the type of person we really want to become, it's like we take what was a magnet in front of us, but has got dirty or grime on it and has not had a lot of attraction or pulling power, so to speak, and we've polished it off so that it exerts its proper pull in our lives. That's what comes out of revisiting our big why. But let me say this, it also could include other things. It could be creating or perhaps re-engaging with some of those life-giving sources of pleasure and purpose that can now open up to you now that you're not down the rabbit hole of porn and that's no longer the focus of your life. See, one of the problems with a porn lifestyle is that it took away our normal pleasures. The normal pleasures that we took in many of the old things, or many of the things that we used to like that didn't come under the category of acting out or pursuing porn. There's actually a fancy word that is used in psychology. It's called anhedonia. Anhedonia is described as the inability to feel pleasure. Now, I recognize there's such a thing as clinical depression. Medication is usually helpful in that regard. But we're talking about something different here. We're talking about this low-grade result of not being able to experience pleasure in anything which used to bring us pleasure, or because nothing compares to porn, we just look around and go, meh, or blah. Nothing feels alive and attractive anymore. And that is probably one of the saddest things that we're trying to get over on coming out of a porn lifestyle. So this whole idea is, as we recover from porn, we can now begin to create or rediscover some of those new life-giving, forward-pulling magnets that can move us towards a richer, deeper life. One of the coolest things that I've seen with guys as they move out of porn and they begin to look at their lives is they begin to discover new passions, new things in their life that maybe were there before when they were a child, or new things that they can now explore. Let me give you a bit of an example from my own life that I'm in right now. For the last month or so, I have been caught up in a home renovation project. I love doing home renovations, usually, as long as it's not drywall taping, I've discovered. But other than drywall taping, I took my outside deck up here in Canada. It's frustrating because you can only really be out there 5 months of the year. And I said, well, forget that. I'm going to cover my entire deck with patio doors. I went and bought 5 patio doors, cost me a chunk of money, and I redid the roof. And I'm in the process of doing all the trim. I'm going to bring my air conditioning and heating ducts from underneath the house. I'm going to extend them. I'm really creating a man cave, a place where I can do my podcasts, a place where I can hang out with the guys and watch football. And I have been totally absorbed in this project, which probably explains to you if you're wondering, why is Vern not putting out and the podcast like he's normally been doing? It's because, my affections, my energy, I think about this when I go to bed at night. Now I'm also, still teaching Thursdays and Fridays, although that's winding down. But here's the point. The point is I have been absorbed in this new project. I've been loving it. I can't wait to get back to it. And the funny thing, in this last month, I have really not thought about porn hardly at all. It's just the pull of it's gone down significantly. I just don't have time for it. When I have any extra time, what I want to do is get back to that absorbing activity. You see, that's a magnet for me. I don't know what your magnet is. It could be a cluster of things. I know a guy that loves mountain biking, and so he's always thinking about mountain biking. Another guy I know that is photography, or he loves hiking and new hiking trails, new things that they're experiencing now. Again, the positive part of recovery is this: once you get the engine turned off and you begin to journey down this, it's oftentimes only a matter of months, 4, 5, 6 months, where all of a sudden you go, you know what, I've got a big hole in my life. And you realize, I want to put some new things in my life that pull me forward. I think that I think it's a way of rewiring our brains. I just think that this is something that each one of us can, simply do as a very practical thing in our life. So here's a question. Does the old magnet shrink over time? Well, I don't know. Maybe if you're into brain science, you might say that the neural pathways are not a 4-lane highway anymore. They're a country road, perhaps. That's kind of above my pay grade. I don't know in terms of whether they shrink over time. That old magnet does. But here's the bigger point. What would happen if we created new, stronger magnets that are out ahead of us? So it doesn't matter what those old magnets call for us, whatever their level of attraction is, we have new, stronger magnets which are pulling us forward towards a better life. I think for me, that's something that I have control over that can work towards my success in this recovery journey. So maybe you need to polish off some old magnets and stick them out ahead of you. Maybe you need to rediscover some new things in your life. I want to say here's towards creating and finding a new compelling set of habits and excitement and desires in your life that pull you into a better future. And then, as the opening says, then we will find the life and relationships that we've always dreamed possible. So until next time, God bless you and have a great day.